formally getting this started, we're going to be talking about what's formerly America's Choice, which is now Population Science Management, Iron Health, right? That's the same entity. And then we're going to talk about LifeX and their plans and how they work. So I'll share my screen here just to show you my portal. I just got access to LifeX last week, like I said, and I sold just a couple plans. I've done my own personal deep dive on all the brochures, but I'm still learning too. So if I say anything that anybody has questions on, or if somebody, hey, maybe you heard something different, feel free to jump in and we'll talk about it. Only because I full disclosure again, we're all learning as we go, and even the companies are making slight changes as they go that I've noticed. So let's just kind of keep it open-ended a little bit in that regard. But I'm going to share my screen. Most everybody should have already done their contracting. If you didn't, make sure that you request it back office. Again, it's America's Choice, formerly known as America's Choice. These are the Population Science Management, PSM, or Iron Health plans. This is what your writing link page looks like, similar to America's Choice. LifeX, this is what LifeX looks like, same style of writing link. And they have similar plans, some slight nuances that are important to know, okay? I'm going to start with Population Science Management, okay? Only because America's Choice, again, I've written a lot of those over the last, 3-4 months now. I think I have 60 on the books right now, and works great. They're paying all their claims. I had one case in particular where I used a gig care plan, and that's the Blue Cross of Nebraska network that America's Choice and now Population Science Management utilizes. And pretty early on, one of the kids got sick and went to the hospital several times for some big claims, and they paid everything. Everything is being paid. So again, so far so good. It seems to be working really well, and they're paying all the claims as they're supposed to, as per the brochures and the trainings that they offer and what they state they're going to pay. So to kind of take a step back and look at what these plans are, right? And it's, if you remember from some of the trainings and some of the national sales calls that we had these guys on, it's actually not health insurance product per se. It's actually a group benefit plan.
Hey,
Okay, so,
Becca.
It's
so
Jason.
similar to if you work for a big company and they're providing you group benefits, similar style structure. It's a group that was created, so again, Iron Health, LifeX created these groups, okay, and they're using kind of an interesting way of allowing anybody to get into the groups, okay. But to be clear, you're not selling an individual health plan. It is group coverage. It's a group enrollment. They have to meet certain criteria on both plans. But as long as they enroll and they meet that criteria, there's no waiting periods, and coverage for everything is day one. Okay. So the way I explain it, okay, so let's, again, starting with Iron Health, if I get somebody on the phone and I'm going to be presenting them these plans, I tell them straight up, I'm like, listen, we have access to essentially group coverage offered by Iron Health or offered by LifeX. So what these entities did was they created group plans, okay, for small business owners, right? And technically LifeX, what I like about, you don't have to be a small business owner. But keeping it on Iron Health for now, or PSM, what I tell them is it's a group plan created by Iron Health, which allows small business owners from around the country, as long as they qualify. You have to have 1099 income, a Schedule C, or a Schedule K1. Another one is a Schedule SE. But bottom line with that is just you have to own your own business and get paid. You can't be getting paid primarily W-2 income for Iron Health. Okay. As long as you meet that strict requirement, and they're strict with it because they have to, there's a lot of legislation out there that they have to be compliant with these rules. But as long as they meet that requirement of being a business owner, 1099 income, and they can answer some health questions and say no. They have to say no to all the health questions, right? And as long as they can do that, they can get on the plan, enroll, and there's no waiting periods and benefits start day. All benefits start day one. Okay. So if you're looking at this page, looks like there's a whole lot of plans here, and there really isn't. Okay. What you have is the deductible plans. So the 250, the 500, 750, these are one single plan. It just has a different deductible. This is not full major medical. It is actually limited benefits. Okay, it's styled after your more traditional major medical style insurance, which is what people like about it. You got your copays, you got your deductibles. So it's easy to read, easy to understand. That's what people seem to love about it so far. Okay, but again, there are some limitations to it. So as we go through, we'll look at that. So one plan here, check that boxes. These are all one plan. Okay, I'm going to jump to the top because gig care is kind of this plan I sell. Second most here. It allows you to access Blue Cross of Nebraska, PPO, or on the higher deductible, it's an EPO network. But you do get a bigger, well-known name network. Okay. Also, you have the titanium plans, or excuse me, the metal plans, which goes from titanium to copper. So call that plan two. All right. So plan one is the deductible plans. These are all the same, just different deductibles. The gig care, mostly the same, just different deductibles. And then the metal plans, meaning the titanium, diamond, platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and copper. Mostly the same, just different deductibles. Okay. What's also nice about this platform is if you want to look at it, it's easy. Click the info button, check the summary of benefits, download it, boom, here it is. And this is the gig care, population science management. And this is what I mean by more traditional style of insurance, whereas it's easy for people to follow along. Not like Philadelphia American or Manhattan Life, which are defined benefit plans, and you have to kind of figure out different structure of coverage. This is straightforward. You have your deductibles, your co-insurance, your max out-of-pocket, and your copay structure. Okay. The gig care plan. So if we're going back to the main page, gig care and the metal plans are ACA compliant. Okay, meaning all preventative care is free and fully covered. Okay, you have your deductibles, you have your copay, and you have a max out of pocket. So there's a certain threshold that the client will eventually hit that they don't have to worry about paying anything else. Okay. There are some other nuances with gig care and the metal plans. I don't want to get too much in the weeds for now, but just the main things to remember now is you have your deductibles, your copays, they are ACA compliant, the gig care and the metal plans. I haven't sold an HSA yet. So from what I could tell with them though, it's just high deductible. There's a couple other extra plans in here, HSA. I wouldn't worry about those for now, unless you have someone specifically that has an HSA and they want like a major medical compatible plan. Then we could kind of broach this topic. But for now, I want to keep it simple. We're just focusing on the three main plans, deductible plan, gig care, and all these metal plans. Okay. The plan I've been selling the most by far is the deductible plans. Okay. And you're going to see why. Let's look at it. Actually, sorry, I like this brochure better. So once I get a customer on the phone, right, and maybe I'm showing them Manhattan, and I have another, by the way, I have another training that would be a nice segue to this training that's recorded in our Producers Group YouTube page, where I kind of show how I start with Manhattan, explain the benefits, and if they're not really jiving with the Manhattan or Philadelphia American plans, I pivot very smoothly to say America's Choice or Iron Health or LifeX. So if you guys didn't see that training, that's a good one to start with, okay? But let's assume, for purposes of this training, that maybe for whatever reason, they're not jiving with Manhattan or Philadelphia American, or hey, maybe they like it, but they just want to see something else. I pivot to one of these two plans, And this is the next one I go to, and I explain to them, this is a plan by Population Science Management. What this is a group plan. So Population Science, PSM, they own the plan, and they created this group coverage for small business owners. So as long as you're 1099 or you have some business in your name and you're not primarily W-2 and you meet some basic health requirements, you can enroll on this plan and there's no waiting periods. And it's styled after your more traditional major medical. Most of what I've been selling is the 250 deductible. So all the customer has is a $250 deductible per year, and it's a family $500 deductible. Okay. They do have to pay that deductible first before they receive any benefits other than preventative care. So again, if they're sick and they go to the doctor or they're injured, they got to pay the $250 first. Okay. But once they pay the $250, they have access to a very simple copay style of coverage. So it's a $50 copay. You're going to have 10 primary care doctor visits per person per year, 10 specialists per person per year, 10 urgent care per person per year, $50 copay. That's it. With Philly and Manhattan, as some of you may know, you got to be wary of what the benefits pay for an office visit, a specialist, etc. This plan, not so much. All you got is your deductible and your copay. Easy peasy. At this point, too, I do mention, and I don't know why they move it here, but they also offer therapy benefits. So I'll just jump here quick. They move it. Here it is, therapy. So you're also going to have a combination of 10 therapy visits, which includes chiropractic, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, cardiac therapy. You get 10 of those to share. Again, $50 copay. Plenty of doctor visits, right? So if you have someone that doesn't like some of the limitations of PAL Manhattan, you're going to get a ton of doctor visits on this plan. Also, preventative care. No charge. You need a preventative care colonoscopy, mammogram, doctor visit, right? Any type of routine wellness benefits. No charge. And you do not have to pay the deductible first for anything preventative care. And it will not come out of those 10 banks that we just looked at. 10 10 primary care, 10 specialists, 10 urgent care, 10 therapy. This does not count towards those numbers. Preventative care is fully covered. Okay. As I'm going through this, I'll explain telemedicine as on most plans, no charge. You're also going to have a $250 copay for an emergency room. That's unheard of. The majority of plans nowadays, you have to pay a big deductible before you get an emergency room visit, or sometimes a giant copay, right, on Marketplace. This plan, $250 copay, that's it. However, you're going to have 2 sickness ERs per person per year and 2 accident ERs per person per year. Emergency transportation, air ambulance or ground ambulance, no charge. That's also unheard of, right? Marketplace, subject to deductible. Most employer plans, subject to deductible. So no charge for ambulance. However, you're going to get 2 per person per year. Outpatient services. So you need outpatient surgery. $250 copay, that's it. Like Philly and Manhattan have a $600 or $700 benefit, and you got to kind of troubleshoot the costs and make sure that they're not overbilling where your client goes. With this plan, they got their copay. That's it. $250. Somebody have a question?
It's contracting.
If you're not asking questions, guys, make sure you're muting. Inpatient services, $1,000 copay. Then that's the biggest copay on the plan, $1,000. Okay. Now there are some limitations here, so make sure they read the fine print. And at this point, this is what I explain to my customer is, listen, as you're starting to get a feel for this plan, right? They're going to give you phenomenal major medical style of benefits, meaning deductible, very little, $250, and you got a simple copay for everything. So what they're doing with this plan is they're saying, hey, we're going to give you, kind of old school style of coverage back like in the 90s, right? If you work for a big company with very little to nothing out of pocket, they're giving you all these front end benefits. However, the catch is it's not unlimited. And you need to pay attention to the limitations of the plan. But you have 3 outpatient surgeries per person per year. You're going to have 2 major inpatient surgeries per person per year. Most folks, to save the money, because these plans are very cost effective, and we'll go look at pricing here in a sec, but most folks love this plan in a sense of they have a high deductible. I just had a guy from Nevada paying $1,300 a month for his marketplace plan. I put him and his wife on this, and they're older. They're in like their early 60s, making good money. $1,300 a month for their major medical plan with a high deductible. Didn't like Manhattan. He's like, I don't like the structure. I'm used to what I'm used to, right? He was an older school guy. I said, hey, let me show you this one. It's actually a group plan for small business owners, which you are. And I showed him the benefits on this, and he thought it was amazing, right? Not only did I put him on it, it's been working great, but he sent me like 3 other business owners that he works with, right? Because it's hard to find this style of benefits. Again, I'm very careful in my terminology, major medical style of benefits with your deductible and copay. It's not straight major medical, this one, right? It's a limited benefit, but those limitations are very high. Okay. And we don't have to go through every section here, but one more I will mention, maternity. $250 copay for routine maternity, unheard of, right? Now there's a cap on it, okay? C-section, $500 copay. All other maternity services are covered. So there are some caps on it. So if anybody ever asks, here's actually what happens behind the scenes on this plan specifically, right? Is all outpatient care, all major surgeries, anything that's obviously if it's an emergency, go to the ER, right? But anything like an MRI, an ultrasound, an outpatient procedure, okay, maternity, if someone's going to have a baby, all what's very important is in one, I guess one other catch, so to speak, is the benefits have to be pre-certified. Okay. So what I tell my clients is, hey, if you need to have anything outpatient or if your wife is pregnant, let me know because we're going to call the insurance company and pre-certify the benefits. So I'll give you an example. I put a client on this plan. This was about a month ago. He calls me on a Friday afternoon, right? 5 o'clock, of course, right? And he's like, hey, I need to have an ultrasound. I went to my doctor, first time using this plan. Went to my doctor. It was preventative care, so he didn't have to pay anything. However, the doctor was a little concerned because his blood pressure was high, was concerned that he had a blood clot. So he said, hey, go down to the street here to our outpatient facility, and I want you to have an ultrasound done right now because I'm concerned you have a blood clot. They called the benefits to pre-certify and the population science management, right? It's actually Datego Health, but this company talked to the doctor's office and said, yeah, we have to pre-certify these, so it's going to be a week or two until he could have this done. And the doctor's like, well, this is an emergency. He has to have it done now. So the insurance company advised him, we'll go to the emergency room because obviously you don't have to pre-certify an emergency room visit and an ER visit. Up here, $250 copay. To add a little nuance to this case, the client called me and was like, listen, I would go to the ER, but there's a 9-hour wait. There's one ER in town. So I had the doctor's office again call the insurance company and explain it to the insurance company. Okay. And what they actually did, they understood the fact and they were able to reach them. They understood the fact there was a 9-hour wait, and this insurance company actually said, okay, we're going to pre-certify the benefits right now. So he went, had his ultrasound done, paid $250. Okay. So some success stories with this plan. And it also illustrates the point that they do have to be pre-certified. You can't just show up and have a surgery. Okay. But if you're talking to your clients first, that's not, anything new. I mean, with Philly and Manhattan, I always tell them, shit, if I put them on ACA and it's a good client of mine, I'm like, listen, even if even if you have subject to deductible, always call me. Just don't blindly pay the deductible, right? And that's something I train all my clients to do is outpatient stuff. They all know to get a hold of me, and I beat that into them right early on. I tell them when I close them. I tell them again after they're approved, right? And then I typically remind them almost every time I talk to them, hey, don't forget, if you have outpatient stuff, get a hold of me. Keep your clients happy. They'll stay on your books a long time. Okay. And these plans all pay level commissions monthly. I think, it's a little delayed in the commission. But I'm getting like $6,000 a month or something crazy just for the plans I've been writing this every month, like clockwork, right? On the middle of the month, every month I get my direct deposit. And they pay well. It is as earned, so it takes a little time to build it up. But if you're writing a lot of these, you're going to get paid well, and you're going to get paid indefinitely on them as long as they stay on your books. Okay. So this has been the most popular plan I've been offering so far with Iron Health. Any questions or anything I could go into on more detail with this plan in particular?
Is there anything particularly that you are pairing with this plan
I
in
have
cases where
before,
they are, nervous about the caps?
for sure. No, and I have a couple of times I had some clients that were a little like most of them honestly were like, no, we're healthy, right? These benefits are fine. I'm aware, they're aware, I make them aware of all those limitations and they're totally fine with it. But in the couple times they were a little wary, I actually paired, one time I added Med Mutual catastrophic to it. I did the specified disease and catastrophic accident
Okay.
just to give them somewhat of a stop loss. It's not a formal max out of pocket, but it is somewhat of a stop loss for most accidents and most illnesses. Okay. And then another time I also paired affordable choice with it, where they just in case they hit a threshold for like MRIs, CAT scans, things of that nature, blood work. I paired affordable choice with it and same strategy. Hey, let me know when you have outpatient stuff. I'll help you confirm and verify the benefits. That way, if we're hitting a threshold on this one, I could easily use the per diems that most of you should know for Manhattan. And again, I like Manhattan because there's no deductible and no copays, right? And it's just easier to pair with other plans. I know Philadelphia American, they give you issues sometimes if you're trying to pair their products with another product, and they don't want to coordinate benefits. Manhattan does not have a problem with that.
Thank you.
Yep. Good question, though. Any other questions on this one?
What happens if someone's in their third trimester? Will they still cover it?
So good question, right? And let's go into this here. So let's say, for example, we're getting ready to sell this, okay? And I'm just gonna do me. You guys will see my date of birth, but I don't care. Hold on. So like legit, you put the birth date in, hit update down here, and then it gives you the price for a single person, okay? So if I'm buying this plan and you hit continue, by the way, okay, the enrollment dates, the 20th of each month is the last day you can enroll for a plan that you want to start the first of the following month. And it's pretty clearly in here. So as long as I get this application completed and signed by the 20th of April, it'll start on May 1. If you try to get in here after the 20th, June 1 will be the start date. Okay. But to answer your question, Danny, if you hit continue here, fill in the info, they have to be able to say no to all the health questions. Okay. So,
Did they change their questions, Kush?
yeah, I haven't, since they switched to Iron Health, I actually haven't sold one of these. With America's Choice, and I know with LifeX now, there's a bunch of health questions. So I'd have to play with this a little bit. I don't know if they're getting rid of their health questions, but let's just go through it quick. So they have to be able to say yes to this, okay? And at this point too, right? And maybe I'll do like a more detailed like pitch and closing of this on a separate training. I don't want to get into the weeds too much. But again, there's a certain way I explain the questionnaire. Because I want them to know that part of the requirements for being on this plan is that they got to do a survey at least once a year. And this is how, by the way, this is how these companies are making money, is they're collecting their data. So that'll be in the disclosures they have to sign that, hey, you're saying yes, you're answering, pretty non-evasive questions about your health and about, your activity. As long as they answer those questions, they could stay on the plan. So let's see. So you're basically saying yes to all this stuff. The consumer data respondent, right? If you're looking at the strict compliance on this, you do want to tell the clients that, hey, I'm technically recruiting you, right, to be part of this company. That's how they're offering you the group benefits. I typically do that, though. I don't want to get confused. I separate my pitches essentially where I explain the plan like we talked about, get them familiar with the benefits, make them understand and sell them the great benefits that come with a plan like this. Once they're sold on it, right? And this is just how I do it. I explain the fine details. And I've never once had anybody say, no, I don't want to sign up for this anymore. All right. Because I explained to them that they're signing up as a consumer data respondent. It's not a health insurance plan. It's actually a group benefit plan, as if you work for an employer. And yeah, the way around the law so that you can get access to these, phenomenal benefits, right, is you're technically signing up for a group plan. So those are the requirements. And again, never had anybody bat an eye at it. Okay. So they understand they're enrolling in a group plan. And honestly, like most people love the idea because as small business owners, it's hard to get good. I mean, it's impossible at times to get good group benefits unless, who you're contracting with offers you a group plan. And group plans are technically better cost, better coverage. Okay.
So this only works for the employer, or does it work for their entire group?
Only for the employer.
Okay.
So specifically with Iron Health, again, we're talking about Iron Health first. Again, you have to be 1099. Now, if they have employees, I did help someone out had a couple employees that were 1099, but their employees have to pay for it individually. The employer cannot pay for this plan. Okay. And again, everybody you put on this plan has to have to be an independent contractor, gets 1099 income, or they have to own a business.
Okay.
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 And so, again, good question. Now, getting back to Danny's question too, there traditionally is a bunch of health questions here first. And they have to be able to answer no to all those questions. And those questions range from, obviously heart attack, stroke, cancer, all the big stuff they cannot have. They can't have a surgery like next week or pending anytime soon. Okay. They cannot be pregnant at the time of signing for this. Okay. To the best of their knowledge. As long as they answer no to those health questions, they're guaranteed approval. Like literally, they'll get the approval within 5 minutes of submitting their e-sign. And the plan will start on the 1st, and there's no waiting periods. I'm wondering, because again, this changed last week. I haven't sold one of these in the last week. So I'm wondering if they're getting rid of the health questions. I'll check on that and I'll follow up with you guys and I'll put it in the group chat. But any other questions on this one in particular?
Yeah, Kush, what would be the trigger to go to this plan rather than a monumental or the PAL program?
Manhattan or PAL?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, it's typically, understanding your clients. I do sell a lot of Manhattan still. And if I have someone, for example, that's just, let's look here quick at a Manhattan Life brochure, okay? So if you're explaining the brochure, and you get to this page, and it's completely different benefit structure. This plan is good in its own right, but there are gonna be limitations to indemnity defined benefit plans, right? There's probably more limitations in terms of the daily per diem, right? So if you have a customer that's, sometimes they tell me straight up, hey, I had a defined benefit or indemnity plan before. I don't want that again. So then I'm jumping straight to Iron Health or I'm jumping to LifeX. Or if they like this plan, and again, I have a training on our producers group YouTube page where I kind of say how I start with this, and then I'll shift to Iron Health or LifeX. And I give them both options. Now, in the beginning, obviously, Manhattan pays you more as a new agent trying to get up and running. So, hey, maybe you try to push Manhattan a little more, providing the customer's okay with the limitations. But for me, I show them this. And I explain it as, hey, this is your defined benefit plan. This is how it works. And if they're totally sold on it, I just sell it, right? However, if they're a little wishy-washy with it, or they're just not thrilled with this type of benefit package, then I'll show them a more traditional style of insurance, health insurance. And this is a group plan. And then I let them choose. And, it seems to be let's say over the last 6 months, writing both regularly, kind of seems to be 50-50. For a while, everybody's taking Manhattan. It's lower cost, right? But oftentimes people will opt into this. It depends on the person.
But being a new guy and just starting out, I would probably start with Manhattan, then have this as an option, correct?
Yeah, only because, especially when you're new, you're trying to make those commissions up front, right? And Manhattan will pay you more up front. Both of these plans we're looking at today, they pay you as earned, and it's way better than ACA. It's a good commission and it'll add up quick. But yeah, you have to. So if I write a plan effective for May 1, and I know Jim, you and I sold one together. That was your first sale. You did a good job on it. But you're not going to get paid on it. It was effective if it goes effective May 1, you're actually not going to get paid your first as earned commission until the middle of June. So it's a slower payout. Okay, so just be mindful of that, especially new agents, you're trying to generate cash flows. That's important things to consider. But an awesome plan. I would also say to you, don't lose a sale if they're not jiving with Manhattan. Take the sale, take the bird in hand, right? And, you'll build up solid income, on this plan. My goal is to write 100 of these my first year. That's like 10 grand a month at least of income, just every single month, as long as they're on the plan. Okay.
And how many is that writing? How many people are you closing doing that?
So like I think I said a couple times now, but I think I wrote about 50, somewhere between 50 and 60 of these so far. And then once like next month, I'm expecting to get like between 5 and 6,000 in my monthly commission. But just in those like not even 6 months, it went from $200 a month to $800 a month to $1,500 a month, so on and so forth. So it'll build up quick if you're writing them consistently. I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I want to say you're getting around like $150 to $180 a month for these plans I'm talking about here.
Okay, thank you.
Mm. Okay, and remember, this is specifically the limited plan, which, hey, great coverage, but it is limited in certain areas that you guys see here. Okay. Now, if they say to me, well, hey, I like this plan. This has happened a couple times. Hey, I like this plan, but I'm not comfortable with having these limitations. And that's an easy pivot, because then we're just pivoting. And again, keeping it on PSN, Population Science Management, also known as Iron Health, right? These are the limited plans. Then we're pivoting to the next level up would be the metal plans. That's titanium here, all the way to copper. So if we quote this out, someone 40 years old on that first plan was, I think, $379. Someone 40 years old on a high deductible unlimited plan 509. And I've sold several of these as well. Leave it up to the client. But I will say most people are okay with lower cost limited plan. That's by far the best selling of any of these. So, and one other point to make on these, and then I do want to get into the LifeX ones, okay? But the network, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but the network is the PHCS PPO, Practitioner and Ancillary Network, okay? It's easy to search the network. If you go to, again, the pricing plan page, click here, find a provider, okay? It is the Practitioner and Ancillary Network. This one here, and the instructions are right there, right on your tab for the plan itself in your portal, in your link. But it's Practitioner and Ancillary. Next. Put a doctor's name in search. Boom, comes up. Okay, one last point on these plans, especially with the PHCS plans. Their doctors do have to be in network. So make sure you're confirming with the search, and even call the doctor if you want. Hey, do you take PHCS, Practitioner and Ancillary Network? To make sure they're in there. I haven't had any issues with it. Whoever comes up in the search so far for me, they've been in there. They accept the plan, all good. Technically speaking, and the way I'll word it to clients is pretty much all your hospitals and all your outpatient facilities are going to be in network, because the plan, again, if you guys remember, you got to pre-certify benefits. So these two, Iron Health and LifeX, they don't really care that much what the network the hospitals are in, because they're going to reach out and they're going to pre-certify benefits either way. So make sure the doctors are in there. Don't worry so much about hospitals and outpatient facilities, because again, the plan handles that in its pre-certification process. Okay. So lastly, and then I'm going to jump to LifeX, but where did I go here? Shoot. Hold on. So yeah, when you click the network search, by the way, it closes the link, so you got to go back to your writing link. PHCS for the metal plans, the gig care, okay? It used to be Nebraska PPO. Let me actually check it again, because again, I haven't been in here that much the last week. So yeah, the gig care plans are more expensive, and these are all meet minimal essential coverage guidelines. The gig care plans are ACA compliant. They use the Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO network of Nebraska. Okay. And yes, I have a client that I put on this plan. He lives in Florida. He goes to a doctor in Minnesota, and they take the Blue Cross Blue Shield PPO Nebraska network. And there's in the same spot, there's a network search in your on your writing page right here. And just search it pretty simply. And if they're in there, every doctor so far that's been in there has taken the plan. Okay. So again, we'll do more of these just because there's a lot here to cover in an hour or so, but that's a good intro training into, say, Iron Health. Now getting into LifeX, here's the LifeX link. Okay. Similar navigation. You got your deductible plans. These are the ones I've sold so far. You have a $250 deductible all the way to $1,500 deductible. Functions pretty much the same exact way as the PSM Iron Health ones. Okay. They got an HSA, which I haven't sold yet. And then you have your major medicals, the MMs, LifeX Major Medical. All these are the same, slight nuances, and deductible is the only difference. So call it the two main paid plans that are on here. On LifeX, you got your deductible plans, and you got your classic or the value high deductible or lower deductible major medical. Major medical meaning unlimited. The deductible plans are going to have similar limitations. Now, what I like about LifeX so far, it's almost identical structure brochure. Again, slight nuances. So let's look at one of these. So LifeX, same overall premise, but instead of population science management, it's LifeX. However, what LifeX has that's a slightly different, and and I actually love it so far, we'll see, but anybody can get on this plan, even if you have W-2 income. So you do not have to be a small business owner. You do not have to have 1099 income. The reason being with this plan is what they actually do is they're going to, same requirements with the health questions and with the annual questionnaire you have to do. Okay. But they actually send you a paycheck for doing the survey. And I want to say it's like $50 to $90 a year. So what they're actually doing is employing these people with W-2 income. But by doing that, it opens up that door. So people that don't have 1099 and don't have small businesses could still get on this. Another phenomenal bonus I like so far is it uses PHCS PPO, but it uses their broad network, not the practitioner and ancillary. So it's a bigger PHCS PPO network. And we could do Anthem, Blue Cross PPO. I've been working with this family's been with me for a couple of years, and over the years, I'll give you an example here. This client, I've had him on PAL, I've had him on Manhattan. They didn't want to do Marketplace. They make way too much money, and it's just they've been struggling a little bit with the formatting and the structure of Manhattan and Philly. So a few months back, I told them about America's Choice at the time. They loved it. They thought it was too good to be true. However, none of their doctors were in PHCS PPO, and it's just kind of been the ongoing issue I've had with this client. Just yesterday, I texted them like, hey, great news. I have almost identical plan that we've been trying to get you on. However, it uses the Anthem Blue Cross PPO network. So all your doctors are in network, and they were thrilled, right? So I'll be putting them on this week. So if you look at this plan, similar structure, 250 deductible, 500 family. Then you're going to get access to the copay structure. Now, slightly less doctor visits. If you remember, the last one had 10, 10, 10. This one has 10 per person per year total. And you share it with these visits. So slightly limited on doctor visits. So, and what I may do with that client I just told you about is I may keep them on affordable choice and then throw this in. Okay, so they have some extra benefits just in case. But same premise, pay the deductible, $250, $50 copay. Emergency services, same deal. This one, though, has a copay for ambulance. Diagnostic testing, copay structure, outpatient copay structure. Okay. Inpatient, $1,000 copay, 2 per person, 10-day limit. Preventative care fully covered, 100%. Does not come out of the 10 bank. There's actually mental health inpatient. There's mental health outpatient. Therapy, additional therapy. Similar deal with maternity. Okay. One other added bonus of this plan, which is why I tend to be shifting a little bit, is if you look up here, it actually gives you a max out of pocket. So how I understand this, and I'm still trying to verify, right? New plan, but how I understand this and why I like this so much and why I'm kind of shifting to LifeX. The other plan didn't have the max out of pocket. So is if they hit, and again, I'll confirm this, I'm still trying to get definitive answers, but if they hit any threshold, 10-day hospitalization limit, let's say 2 emergency rooms, 3 surgeries per year. If they hit those limits and then spend $9,200 out of pocket, you hit the max out of pocket and the plan's going to cover everything. So I almost look at this like on top of everything else that this plan offers, this little section here is like its own little catastrophic blanket over the top of it. Whereas this one doesn't, this one here didn't have that. So if you hit these thresholds, doctor visits, emergency rooms, hospitalization, you hit these thresholds, that's it. With this plan, you hit any of these thresholds, let's say you have your fourth major inpatient surgery of the year, yeah, you're gonna have to pay some of this because the copays do go towards this number. But you'll have to pay some more to satisfy the 9,200, and then you got the blanket of catastrophic out-of-pocket max. So, small sample size, but these plans seem to be somewhat of a game changer, especially for the industry, whereas we got ACA, we got PAL, we got Manhattan, right, as our main plans. But there's a lot of people that fall into that hole where ACA is not great, PAL may not be great for them, Manhattan may not be great for them, right? This kind of fills that massive void, providing they continue to stick around. So don't abuse it. Vet your customers. Make sure they're legitimately answering these questions honestly. Because as agents, we want to do our part. We don't want to abuse this because we want these plans to work well and to be around a long time. So, any questions on this one?
Chris, do you understand, as I understand it, for the prescriptions on the Iron Health, the free prescriptions are now only mail order, but on LifeX, it is not just mail order, correct?
Correct, yes. So yeah, I didn't even get to prescriptions again. What I think I'm going to do is do individual, because we could spend a whole hour on any one of these products, right? So I wanted to give you an overview, but yes, on Iron Health, formerly America's Choice, the prescription coverage, there is a formulary. So if you go into here, and let's just look at the info. Is this it now? Again, they changed the verbiage a little bit. Yep. So there's the formulary. Most common medications are in here, and if they're in here, then there's no charge for their prescriptions, but they got to sign up for the mail order prescription service. And then yeah, you don't have like direct pharmacy copays on this plan. You have to use GoodRx if they really want to go to the pharmacy. But everybody else, I've set them up. All the clients I've written on this plan, I follow up after they're approved. They set up their portals, which is really they have a really cool portal. And it's really easy to access. They get their ID cards, they can do their prescriptions. It's really user friendly and very well presented. It doesn't look cheap. So it's a really nice user portal that every client's going to have for these plans. LifeX, it's a little broader. You could do the mail order and you could do the copay at the pharmacies as well. Specialty meds too is not going to be covered on either of these, like really any plan, any specialty med that any of your customers are on, even on Marketplace, it's likely to be subject to deductible. So just be wary of what's on the formulary, and the links are in there, what medications your clients are taking. And, we could always look into programs for clients that are on specialty meds. There's Prescription Hope. There's copay programs you can get direct to the manufacturer. So there's different ways of getting coverage for those meds. Any other questions on the limited plan here with LifeX? And again, if you look at the major medical options, so let's just pull this one up here, brochure. Similar again to what we went through with Iron Health, just the deductible, okay? Another added feature here, which is, again, excellent, is you get PHCS PPO, Cigna, and Anthem PPO. And then very straightforward, deductible, co-insurance, max out of pocket.
Do they choose the company that they want to go with, or are just all of them included?
Nope, you pick the company. Good question, right? But you pick the company. So,
Okay.
and they also do the pricing on one of the bottom pages. So you could do pricing just by hitting cost here. So like if we do this and just put in an age per person, and then it gives you each network, member and spouse, each network, so on and so forth. All that pricing, and it'll be in the brochure. So they could play with it. They could look at it themselves. If you do a family, age range, individual, parent and kids only, right? And you have the different pricing structure. You're basically paying for a bigger network, so it's a little more costly with Anthem versus Signet and PHCS. But compared to ACA, compared to Manhattan and Philly, it's that nice medium range. The average client that doesn't get a subsidy or doesn't get a very good subsidy on Marketplace, if you quote them across the board on all these plans, including Philly and Manhattan, typically these plans are a little more expensive, but they're less than Marketplace and better coverage in the sense that the networks are bigger and better, and the deductibles, you could quote them down and you're going to get more benefits up front with these plans. So better than ACA for sure. Assuming they're not getting a subsidy or not getting a significant subsidy.
Do you even write the ACA plans? Any ACA plans?
Yeah, I don't do a ton of ACA. Most of the ACA I write is I'm going to write it and pair it with Manhattan. Just so I use the Manhattan plan as a gap, cover the deductibles and high deductibles in ACA. Or yeah, I mean, hey, if I get a client that's, unhealthy, that maybe develop something and they become unhealthy, and if their income isn't that high, then yeah, I'll put them on ACA. I'm going to do whatever's best for my client. But yeah, I don't chase ACA business per se, just
Right.
because, obviously it doesn't, you don't get paid a lot on it, and it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. But there's ways you could use other plans with ACA to make it more profitable and worth your time more, so that you're happy and your customers are happy.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Did that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So any other questions on, and again, I think what I'll do probably is over time here, I'll get with Damien, and might be smart to do like maybe a deep dive on one or two of these at a time. Show you customer service on them and all that. Because there's a lot to cover in just one training.
Hey, Kush, I just want to remind everybody that the knockout questions and like important stuff for LifeX and America's Choice too. There's like really good info in the back office in the library. Like if you're looking to see if somebody's going to qualify for this or not, like the knockout questions are all listed out in the back office. So if there's any question, you can pull them up there and go through them, before offering this.
Yeah. So no, thanks for bringing that up. And yeah, they do have a good like FAQ page on all these plans. That's how I learned a lot of this, was just kind of navigating there. And you'll see the health questions are a little, there's more of them here. LifeX will ask you some of these employment questions, because don't forget you're getting a W-2 with LifeX. So make sure you're explaining to them that they're enrolling into a group plan. The way that they can offer you group benefits is, you got to do one survey per year. By the way, this initial survey counts as their first survey for the year for LifeX. They're going to give you a W-2. They're going to give you like $50 to $90 a W-2 income per year, just so that they could offer you these benefits and you can enroll into a group plan. And I frame it as like a work around the legislation so that folks that don't have access to good corporate employer provided plans can gain access to one. So yes, they're profiting off your data. I don't tell people that specifically, but yes, they're collecting your data. But it's a win-win situation because you're getting phenomenal group benefits that otherwise would not be available.
Hey,
Okay.
Kush, have you heard about? I asked this question in a training. The guy didn't answer it. Is there a limit to the number of surveys that they can complete in a year?
That's a good question. I don't know that there is, but what I've heard so far is that, they're very reasonable with it. I think it's one per year they're doing initially.
Yeah, I understand the minimum to get to the threshold is pretty low, a couple, so it's nothing major. But my other question is, let's say I have a client that's really diligent and just wants to take a bunch of surveys.
I have the answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I went to the webinar for LifeX, and they said they don't recommend people do more than 12 in a year, but they can do up to 12, no problem.
Cool.
Okay, because I asked that in the webinar as well, and they didn't answer.
Yeah, that's a good one. Great. I think it was Braden. Thanks. Yeah, I know that you can do more if you want. And they pay you for them. So, I mean, why not?
Yeah, if you do one a month, you get paid $50. That's a
Yeah.
that's a
I just,
that's,
most of my
that's a
clients,
McDonald's
they don't
trip
want
for
to
you.
do.
That's a McDonald's trip.
Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, there you go. Um, and they do it. This question too does work, or this questionnaire to enroll them counts towards their first survey for the year that's required. And yeah, if they want to do more, why not?
Okay, so since Braden was on the webinar, and the other question I had is because this is technically a data company, what are they doing to secure the data? And what do they do with it once they have it? Because I
Yeah.
asked that question as well and didn't get an answer.
Yeah. I think a lot of that's evolving. The way I look at it is, I put my faith in USA Benefits Group that these companies are vetted.
Well, yeah, they
Yeah.
yeah, for if you don't know, this sat with AmeriLife Legal for quite some time,
Yeah.
for over a month, where their
AmeriLife.
attorneys were digging through it. So, I put my trust in that they did their due diligence and looked through it. It was just a question that I had.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I said kind of as a disclosure up front, it's like, it's still, I'm learning too.
Yeah, we all are. It's brand new.
Yeah, it's a brand new product, so as more to be revealed, I think, as we go, and I'm sure there'll be changes, right? So, as an agent, you want to keep on top of all this stuff so that you're providing the best service to your clients because they rely on you and they give you referrals when you take good care of them. This is just an example of the questions, right? You got another couple of minutes, not really, but if when you get your links, go ahead and play with it. Put your info in there. Just, don't submit it, but go through the process. You got to answer these affirmatively. There's some education level questions and then the health questions. And the health questions close it out. Pretty straightforward. And as long as they answer no to all these questions, guaranteed approval will, at least initially, it's an auto approval, and the coverage will start with no waiting periods for anything. And there's been people that I got declined on Manhattan or Philly that I put on this because the hoop is a little bigger to jump through in terms of the health stuff and requirements.
One of the questions I got from one of our managers was, how's it deals with injury? So let's say a client has a knee injury that they got done, surgery was done, but then they sign them up for this, and then a couple months later, the knee injury flares back up, and they have to go get it redone.
So I want to be careful how I word this because this is recorded, guys. So I mean, if you want to talk about this more, hit me up on GroupMe and I'd be happy to answer questions. But the way it was explained to me, okay, and I talked to back office folks at America's Choice and LifeX, as long as they answer no to those questions, they're approved and there's no waiting period.
Got it.
I've had situations where a client, I put them on gig care. They were, I could tell they were a little concerned about the health of their son. They want him on major medical. I said, here's the deal. It's like, I hope your son's okay, and I know he wants to go to a different doctor. I said, can he answer no to all these questions? Honestly, I took them through the questions. They answered no. They got approved on the plan. A month later, he had like 3 procedures done back-to-back months, and they submitted like a $60,000 claim, like in 3 of the first 4 months. They paid every dime. Okay, so as long as they answer honestly, and they get approved for the group coverage, there's no waiting period. They're gonna cover them.
I think I watched something on or one of their trainings where they only do like a soft pull to see, like they don't do a medical pull or anything like that. They just make sure that you're being consistent with your if you're on medications. I can't or doing whatever you have. So unless I'm
Yeah.
mixing them up with somebody else, but I think that is them.
I don't know for sure. So again, if anybody has any specific questions, feel free to hit me up in the group chat. But from what I understand, they're not declining anybody right now and they're paying all claims. And they're not doing any look backs. So that could be subject to change as this whole thing evolves, but that's how I understand it now. Cool. So any other questions? Awesome. So, I know it was kind of a broad overview and we covered a lot. So, again, if anybody wants to talk, hit me up in the group chat and we can coordinate a time to talk one-on-one. But yeah, I've been writing a lot of these so far, so good. Stay tuned for updates. And I think, moving forward, we'll do some more, specific product training on these to really hone in on the details.
Awesome. Thanks, Kush. Appreciate it.
Awesome, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
No problem. Yep.
Thanks, Kush. Have a good one.
You guys take care. See you.